first page, always we have production versus destruction versus mining. Production is the highest it has been in 5 years. So on the surface, that looks, first of all, like a fantastic thing. You have to remember, right? Just to make sure everyone understands this graph correctly. You have to remember that here we're talking about 30-day moving average of market price. So if you're talking production, you're also taking market prices into consideration. So this is not necessarily a one-to-one comparison. It also it's also a price comparison over the month. But nevertheless, a rising production graph is always a good thing. And what we're also seeing is that we are seeing a lot of production increases in null. Angry, that is your territory. Can you confirm that production is humming?
Production's going pretty good. I think, yeah, we've seen indexes go up in our space. Our internal metrics show that. Not partly because we've also absorbed Brave. So they've been resetting up their production and doing pretty good as well. So my at least just from me looking at index, it seems that Null has picked up a bit of business because people in Null are better at index control than people in HiSec. And indexes are a very large part of the cost now, and it's making the traditional HiSec advantage in shipping a bit less dominant.
You're talking about the SEC tax increase from
no, that's not it. I'm actually talking about the removal of system bonuses, which
right.
If you actually remember a while back, is that JITA, Perimeter all had very large index bonuses, and they don't anymore. I forgot. I don't remember what JITA is now, but it was something stupid like 20% after they removed the thing, and people in Null generally can control index to be below 8-ish unless they're very stupid, which some people are. People still do production in 1DQ at a 12% index and stuff like that. But I think the ability, I think like HiSec, if you're doing industry in HiSec, you're losing, I think now up to 20% of the cost of the thing in indexes, which I think is not a very good deal for you.
We're seeing the mining and destruction graphs going up as well, just not as quickly in terms of average market price, which is interesting.
Yeah,
it's.
But I would take that with a grain of salt because the MER right now uses the mined ore value, which is not accurate. The accurate value is the refined value, but CCP doesn't use that. So
we did just talk to Estimate about that, Angry, and
okay, so
they're looking at changing that. He's
Excellent.
looking at changing that. I think Challenge understood, and we even have a graph here that we just looked at with Estimate that corrects that. So that's something on the radar and that they're going to correct. That's fantastic. This graph is too small to look at on screen. On stream, but we have a Power BI version of this that we can look at later that breaks it down, each of these KPIs down by region. So I'd rather look at that in Power BI. I wouldn't jump into the specific types of materials mined unless you have a comment, Angry.
I don't have one either, other than that it seems the expansion in nullsec mined I think has a lot to do with the fact that for the first time in a long time Arcanor is somewhat worth mining now, and Zydrene and Bistot's not that far behind, so people are actually finding a reason to go mine Asteroid ore in Null. Bistot used to be very trash for a very long time, and so did Arcanor.
Let's talk about ISK sinks and faucets. So for this, I'll pull up the Power BI version of this, which can help us look at this over time. I don't know if you've seen this. Do you use this Power BI version, Angry? I've shown it to you before.
I have my own. I have my own. Not as good as this one because I'm not as good as sorry, I forgot who made this one.
Yeah,
I'm not
Matthew.
as good at
his name is Matthew.
He's better than me. So me. But I do use my own that I also load the same data to.
So interestingly enough, so when we talk ISK sinks and faucets, I think it's the biggest discussion point in the MER. If you look at the history of ISK faucets from 5 years ago to now, which is the graphs you see up here. 5 years ago, average ISK faucet value was 100 trillion, right? And now we're up to 175 trillion a month. Now you can't look at it in a vacuum. You have to look at it versus the sinks, but certainly a 70% increase in ISK things here is a big deal.
Yeah, there's a lot of things been added to the game since then. So,
Yep.
for example, they added Parchment, which didn't exist before. So Parchment right now prints 17.5 trillion a month. They added home front sites, which didn't exist before. Home front sites last month printed 9 trillion. So right there is 25 trillion out of that 170. They added Marauders, which enabled a lot more farming in wormholes. Wormholes used to print. Let me check my old MERs to see how much wormholes used to print. Wormholes used to print around
They're up to
17 trillion per month,
they're up to
and they're up
20
to like
now.
they're up to, no more than that. They're up. I think this month they said they were up to like
So
close to 30 trillion in
C5 and
wormholes this
C6
month.
together is 20.3 this month. But
Okay,
they're
okay, this month.
yeah. That's
Okay.
in blue
Oh,
loot.
I
That's
have
that's
one.
in blue
So
loot
so the
only.
earliest one I have is from 2019, and that one wormholes printed 11. So
Yeah. So we've
wormholes are
doubled
up
that.
another 9 trillion, double that because of marauders. And there's a couple other things too. People got better at farming Sancha incursions. Sancha incursions used to be around also 10 to 11 trillion, and now they're at 17. So yeah, a lot of people. It's just easier to farm is than it was before. And of course, events. 5 years ago, we didn't have events, and right now, events whenever they pop up dump like 50 trillion into the economy for over the course of 2 months, and then they go away.
Yeah. On the side of sinks, we also see an increase over time, as you should, to keep money supply in control. However, the increase is much less. Here we're talking 77 5 years ago. We're up to about 107 now, so that's more of a 30% increase in sinks. Obviously, we've had a tax reform since then. We've had various industry fee changes overall, but that maybe explains a little bit better why we have a situation like we have now, where we have an SEC tax or an SEC fee increase from 1.5 to 4% if you compare the sinks versus faucets and the balance of the two.
I'm sorry, I missed a little bit because of people talking over
No worries.
me.
No worries. We're talking sinks versus faucets, and how there has the difference between sinks and faucets has been increasing. So that's why we have an increasing money supply. One aspect of that is certainly so anytime you have an increased player base, you're going to have more faucets coming in. The trick there is to balance the sinks accordingly to not have hyperinflation, and that's what the
Right.
job that CCP has right now, and that's why they're doing things such as the industry tax increase that we just saw.
Yep.
The
This is something we talked about with Kenneth Feld all the way back in the beginning of CSM 17 is when they realized they had a sinks problem, is that there weren't enough. And they want to diversify sinks from since then, because if you look at the old MERs from about 2 years ago, you'll see that there's transaction tax, there's broker fee, and there's basically nothing past it.
yeah.
And that's sort of the reason they decided to go with the industry tax reform, is that because it acts like a value-added tax, which is lower deadweight loss and market distortions than a sales tax, which the transaction and broker fees are, and hopefully it's also harder to dodge, because you can dodge quite a lot of sales tax and brokers by going through contract. You cannot dodge industry fees. So that's why they decided to go with it. But industrials have gone so long without paying quite a lot in taxes that there's been a sort of taxpayer revolt about this.
Yeah, I mean, understandably so, right? The question is, are they going to be able to pass on the
Well,
margin lost to the end
I think
customer.
eventually it always balances out, right?
Yeah.
Because I've been just looking at my margin sheet. Is that what you see is that on the week or couple weeks where the taxes increase, your margins collapse for a bit, but eventually they go up, back up because I mean there's no choice. People still got to buy their stuff. You still got to make them, and in the end, it's just felt as higher prices by the consumer. So it is what it is.
The graph I have up here in the background, this is the so-called active ISK delta. So the active ISK delta is the third component of the money supply. If you're talking faucets on one hand, sinks on the other, we have the active ISK delta that represents people, inactive people returning to the game and people going inactive, and GM actions, which means bot bans, for example. And so you can see here, typically, we had slightly negative numbers typically over time. We have these big blue bars of players coming back. That is typically expansions that are coming or free Omega time that is given out, and so lately it's been balancing out. If we look at the on the MER money supply graph, which I can pull up here in the back, we've seen a period of money supply increase, which is fine as long as you have an increase in player base as well, because this doesn't account for that, right?
Yeah, I believe this money supply does account for that. Some of these are definitely players coming back, but other parts is just events dumping in. Is without the two overlaid, I can't exactly remember which is which. But I think that the sharp increases you see in November 2023, that's definitely, sorry, November 2020, that's definitely because of an event. We know we know they gave away free Omega again in June of 2023, so that bump,
Yeah.
that's definitely players. That's from the activist delta and not from just expansion of money supply through the economy.
And you have to look at money supply in connection with the velocity of ISK in order to gauge the danger for inflation there. So if you have a lot of ISK coming back into the system, but it's just sitting there and the people coming back are not throwing it around, then that doesn't really pose a big inflation risk. But if we have a lot of players coming back, entering the system, or if we have the faucets overdoing it in connection with the high velocity of ISK, so a lot of ISKs exchanging hands on a monthly basis, then we do have a risk of inflation. But there is, if you look at the actual inflation, as you probably missed that earlier, Angry, but Estimate was showing us a graph with the actual inflation
Oh,
rate.
did they make a corrected inflation one, or is
Yeah,
it still the
yeah.
CPI one?
He
Made
has
a corrected one.
a corrected one, and
Haven't seen that yet, but I'd be
we're
interested to.
hoping to see it in the MER sometime soon as well. It
That'd be
sounded,
great.
yeah.
But the thing about inflation in Eve, right, is that it works quite weird compared to like real life inflation in the game because the existence of Plex. So
Mm-hmm.
whenever you have a surplus in the money supply in Eve, what you generally see is Plex moves, but nothing else does because um Plex is sort of like, oh, I can save real money if I can have a lot of ISK. Your first concern is actually paying less for Eve. So whenever we see like a big money surge into Eve, it's generally that Plex moves and nothing else really does because Plex soaks up so much of that surplus demand. Excess demand for goods because Plex is actually worth something in real life and other stuff doesn't.
Certainly, it's an in-game. In the end of the day, it's an in-game economy. But still, awesome that we have this type of analysis, this type of report that we can pour over every month and try to make sense of it, even if not everything is just like in real life. Let's look at sinks and faucets over time, Angry. We Let's look at this one right here. Interestingly enough, so several things. One, the commodity here, that blue line right there, is literally, literally the events that we saw in October and December. Injecting a lot of overseer personal effects and that thereby creating ISK out of thin air, which ISK faucets are, right? And the other thing is bounties actually quite high compared to the last 5 years. or 3 years?
Well, not the last 5 years, because this one cuts off at
Yeah, 3
2000.
years.
So this is, so if you look at bounties, right at the start, this is actually at the start. This is actually bounties before the introduction of the dynamic bounty system. So no, this is right after the
Yeah,
introduction
you
of the
see
dynamic
it
bounty
here. You
system,
see it right here.
which cut the yeah. So that's when they put dynamic bounty system back in. But if you stretch this back to 5 years, you'll see that before DBS, the numbers we have for routing that right now are about the same as they were for before when they introduced the dynamic bounty system.
I think we
So
have a
if you
long-term graph in here, don't we? Is
no,
it
not in here. The
not in
Power
here?
BI use
Yeah.
that has it. If you go back a while, you'll see that the routing system bounties right now is about what they were before they did the DBS.
Yeah. I don't think we can. I don't think I have the long-term graph here. This one doesn't go back all the way. But yeah, you're right.
I have one that goes back all the way. Let me pull it out for a sec.
But certainly, what you can see on these graphs is the massive impact that something like the Christmas event has. Right. So you look at this graph right here, and overseer personal effects are the loot that drops from these events that can be sold to NPC buy orders, thereby creating this ISK out of thin air. And you can see that December, this December impact here is absolutely massive, and we see this in last year as well. So the impact that this Christmas event has is certainly huge. Are you sharing a graph with me on Discord, Angry?
Yeah, I will. Give me 1 sec.
So while you do that, Triglavian data right here, which is what what the player base typically calls red loot, is blue in color here. We are seeing that increase a little bit again. A lot of us had the feeling, we don't have actual numbers, but based on the prices of the abyssal materials, it seems like a lot fewer abyssal materials were actually hitting the market, and so I always assumed that we had much fewer people running abyssal space. This graph, oddly enough, seems to imply that at least the Triglavian data, the red loot that is sold back to NPC buy orders, is doing quite well in the last month or two, which is surprising to me. I can't
It
really
could be
believe it.
that people are. So the thing about Triglavian materials is that they're a trade-off. So if you're familiar with how abyssals work, is that you'll enter a room, there's a can in it with most of the red loot, but if the abyssal materials are scattered in like 3 sites around the abyssal itself. So in order to get at the materials, you have to fly to one of the secondary cans around the site. You have to fly back, and that costs you time. And what I think is happening is, as runners are getting better at optimizing and blitzing abyssals, what they're doing is they're going in, they're clearing the racks, they're popping the middle can, but because they're so good at running the sites now, it's more economical for them to just grab what's in the can and go to the next room and harvest all the materials that are around the room. So that's what's causing this phenomena where they're increasing their income, but at the same time, the portion of their income that's Triglavian materials is dropping. So that I think that could be a possible explanation for why that's happening. So this is the long-term data I have. There's 1 month where I had a bad data thing. You see that drop in early 2021. That's a fake data point. So that's what I meant by someone's better at Power BI than I am. Their data set probably doesn't have this. I have it. It's so old, but I don't feel like going back and cleaning up all the data to do it. But what you can see right now is in so going back to 2021, you can see the moment dynamic bounty system was implemented. That's that big drop right before 2021.
Yeah.
You'll see it last about 2 years, and when they restored it, you get to about the same level that it was before. So there was about this 2-year gap where nullsec was not outputting as much as it was, and that actually pushed a lot of people to go do things like wormholes.
Yeah. What do you attribute the recent rise in? Like, so we see very high November, December, January bounty values, increased player base.
The recent spike, actually, that could be because a war just ended. So for a while there was a war going on between
Yeah,
Brave Collective and
in the north.
Fraternity, and during that time, the Brave members weren't really able to rat, and the B2 members weren't really able to rat. And now the war's over. The ones who signed a deal with FRT can rat because now they're blue to FRT. The ones that followed us back to Delve can rat because now they're in Delve. And then FRT can rat because the war's over for them as well. So I think that kind of spike, that's what I think that spike is caused by. Let me just check the date exactly.
Yeah, it's Twitch chat is saying Brave Turbo
November
crabbing.
23. So yeah, so I think that rise is from members crabbing again.
Yeah. So overall, if we here we have it over time, actually, but this
this one also doesn't go back far enough.
It doesn't go back far enough. Yeah. We see transaction tax. So if you're wondering what's if you don't look at these every month and you wonder what's the biggest thing in the game, it continues to be transaction tax. So it's the tax that is subtracted when people trade on the actual market, on the official market. So that's a very, very important part in getting the things out of the system. Certainly, the broker fee used to be a bigger deal. It's not anymore, because they've just removed the tax structure to be for the tax burden to be much more in the sales tax rather than the broker fees. But yeah, in terms of is faucets, certainly bounties and commodities are the ones that are big.
But there's something I want to say about this one, which is that because they picked the top 8 sinks and faucets, you don't see industry, because in the MER itself, all industry taxes, well, we might think of them as industry taxes. They're in 6 different categories, so neither of the 6 actually fall within the top category, top 4 sinks, so you don't see them on this one. But I sent you a separate chart that combines all the industry related sinks into one, and you'll see that rise if you bring it up. I think it's on Discord.
Yeah.
Called 7-day rolling average sink by X, and that it has a little red box on the end. Supposed to be the second to last one I sent you.
Yep, the second to last one. Got it.
Yeah, should have 4 lines on it.
I'm pulling it up. Actually, while I pull that up, I'll pull up another graph for you to maybe talk to. This is the graph the wormholes unfortunately don't want to look at, but this is the one that shows the 20 trillion.
Yeah. And it shows where the 20 trillion comes from.
Yeah. So let me save this image right here. And we will try to pull this into here. So I got the graph up. This is the one?
Yep, that's the one. Oh, this one, you see a blue line at the bottom. That one is I combined the different categories together. So that's industry, that's manufacturing, reactions, invention, METE, copying all together. And this line doesn't appear on the official CCP one because individually, they're, as I said before, they're individually too small. And this is for 2023, which is when they start doing the tax reforms. You can see very clearly at around June 2023, the first spike bump. That's when the industry tax got refactored, and you see it's been climbing steadily ever since, with the 2 different changes that CCP have done to the industry tax since then. And right at the very end is the effect from the SEC surcharge going from 1.5 to 4%, and that's the effect for about a week or so. Now, that, as I said before, that sort of change does sort of suppress industry for a while the pricing makes its way through the system. But on the February MER, we should really see the full impact from that. So that's the last week of January. That's the last bit of January where they had that SEC surcharge at 4%, and see that immediate spike in all industry things combined.
Angry, we talked about in one of the summit meetings this week we talked about the impact or the estimated
Careful about
impact.
the NDA.
Of course, but that's what I'm saying. You and I, or our side of things talked about the impact that might have. The SEC impact overall in terms of ISK faucet or ISK sink.
Right.
What's your estimate? I think you threw one out, yeah?
No, I don't. I think I don't think I had the numbers by then because the MER hadn't come out yet.
Because if we look at the MER, right? If we look at
I think it might be a different thing. That was the estimate I gave was was how that change affects a specific type of activity, which is that it hits research more than other ones.
right, because the overall the SEC tax is on the ISK sinks. It hides in the manufacturing category. That's a total of.
It hides in all of them. It hides in manufacturing, reactions, you know, and inventions, everything. They don't have it separate on the MER.
Yeah. So, but overall, we're talking a few trillion probably in terms of impact, right? I mean, this is not going to be.
Couple. I wouldn't say it goes up to
Yeah.
over because the combined energy sink is only let me check.
Because I mean, overall, it sounds like an absolute massive tax increase from 1.5% to 4%, which it is depending on your viewpoint. If you're an industrialist, of course, it's a massive impact on your supply chain or on your value chain. But in the overall
So my current
context
ballpark
of
is
the
1.2 trillion.
yeah, yeah, so
So it
it's
sounds
not
like a
going to
big
be a
number,
game
but the whole
changer.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think so. I mean, it sounds like a big number, but remember, all things combined is what 107. So it's effectively a 1% increase in sinks. So
Yeah, yeah, and you would have to you would hope that I mean it sounds harsh, but you would hope that it in order to be a fair tax, it needs to be passed on to the consumer, because otherwise it's not
yep,
going to be fair. Yeah, otherwise you
no,
have unfair taxation of industrialists, but that's not what should be happening, but not what should be happening in an economic sense. All right. Anything else? Is there something about home fronts? Something?
yeah, Homefront. So Homefront's also hidden in the CCP top whatever line, because if you look at here, right, you'll see
Yeah,
there's
that.
4 categories: House of Records, Federal, whatever, Ministry of Internal Order, and the Public Security Services. All 4 of those are Homefront, but because they're split, they don't look that big. But combined, it's quite a lot. The combined Homefront is like 9 trillion.
Yeah. So combined, huge, about half of what C5 and C6 wormholes are doing, right?
Yeah, but unlike C5 and C6 wormholes, nobody dies in Homefronts. It's all in high stack. You have Concord, and the content is so easy that people rarely die.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else, Angry? We haven't covered?
Oh yeah, we can talk about partisanship. So Estimate doesn't put certain graphs into the MER because they might be interpreted by players in a partisan manner. I have no such scruples because I wear different hats, right? On the CSM, I am a nonpartisan advisor, but I also have a partisan side whenever I do other stuff. So do you have the destruction versus faucet graph I sent to you on Discord?
Yep. Hold on. We'll
There
we'll
should be
we'll pull up
2 of
any
them.
graph you want today. You can drive. Destruction versus faucets.
Yeah. So, and then there's another one called ISK print loss ratio.
Sure thing. Sure thing. I have it. Let me pull it into the stream here. Here we go.
There we go. So this is the first one showing This is not actually destruction. I mislabeled the graph. This is ISK lost. So like when a ship explodes, right, the hull is destroyed, but 50% of the mods drop. So ISK lost counts all the mods that are dropped as well. So that's the difference between ISK lost and destruction. I used ISK lost in this one, but because I thought it's actually a bit more representative in some way, because the person who died, although their mods dropped, you're not getting those mods back. And what this actually shows is nullsec is actually the most dangerous space in Eve compared to how much money it prints out of the major
Well,
money faucet
this is not
regions.
per pilot, right? This is
This is
overall. This
not
is
per
sum.
pilot, but this is overall. This is overall. Every nullsec router, everyone that plays in nullsec, whatever.
And so, but so you're talking. So let me ask the question for the viewers, so we all have the same information. The sum of destruction is every kill mail in that region of space.
Yeah, the value of every kill mail, including mods dropped.
Yeah, so it could be a wormhole or dying in nullsec.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be a wormhole or dying in nullsec, but if it came to nullsec, it's to kill nullsecers. They're part of the risk equation now, only that we killed you.
And what are you using for some of ISK faucets? How are you attributing them?
That's the faucet attributed to that region. So for Pochven, it's the Triglavian incursions. For nullsec, it is the bounties that come from nullsec portion of space plus the ESS auto payment. For wormholes, it's the net export of blue loot.
Yeah, okay. But as somebody
So
points out in chat,
Spermalza
it doesn't include low sec.
Low sec and high. It's harder to attribute ISK faucet from those regions because it's so diverse compared to the more focused nature of other faucets.
And I mean, so to put this into perspective, so obviously this is not the only relevant metric, right? Angry. This is one metric, but if you wanted to compare the level of destruction with the level of ISK coming into the region, then this is definitely an interesting graph to look at. And so what we're seeing is we in nullsec is about 50% destruction versus faucets, and I guess specifically C6 and Pochven are much different.
The other graph shows you the ratio. The one I have before that one.
Yeah, I can pull that one up.
Just blue bars.
On C6s, though, I mean, and I've talked to Mark Resurrectus about this, right? And C6s, you don't have people living there, right? That's why the destruction is quite low. It's like it's purely
right,
for ratting.
Should you have a space that is not lived in, not fought in, and only crabbed in? I think the answer should be no, because it's not fair. People don't like it when nullsecers crab in systems where nobody goes, where they don't like being disturbed. Oh, you're all risk-averse crabs hiding in dead ends. Oh, you're all risk-averse crabs hiding in C6s.
Okay. For everyone out there that doesn't know Angry Mustache, he doesn't even live in nullsec. He is not impartial to this discussion, but the numbers are as they are. That's correct. All right, I'll pull up the last graph for you, Angry, to wrap this up.
Yeah.
So what are we going to see on the last graph?
It's the same data as here, but shown as a ratio. It's shown as a pre-calculated ratio rather than you having to eyeball it.
This right here?
Yeah, that one.
So we're seeing Pochven and C6 have a much higher ISK per loss ratio.
ISK printed to loss ratio, yes. No, C1's not where you want to be. This is a ratio. It means a lot more stuff died in C1s than ISK printed out of it.
It's also funny how C4s are just not they're just not in a good place.
Well, nobody PvEs in C4s.
Yeah.
Because their sites suck.
Yeah. C3s on the other hand, quite good, and C5s have about the same ratio as nullsec space.
But you see a couple outliers.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Angry, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, yeah, no worries. We still have one day more to go. Angry and I do on the CSM Summit that is going on. For those of you that missed it, we are currently in a week long workshop marathon to talk about EVE Online, to give the player feedback to CCP devs, to the data team, to the design team, to the UI team, to anyone who will listen to us. And so far, it's been, I don't know what your impression has been, Angry, but it's been super tiring, but extremely interesting, and overall a very, very rewarding experience. It's for you. It's already the second. Is it second?
Yeah, it's my second one. It's not as tiring for me this time because I'm at home. I didn't go to the summit because I'm sick. Um, doctor did not advise me to travel, so I get to sleep in my own bed. You guys like you to go wake up, get to the taxi. I'm attending all my meetings like in bed in my pajamas, so it's not nearly as tiring for
Nice.
me.
And I can attest, I can't attest to the pajamas, but I can attest to Angry attending all the meetings remotely, and it's working. It's working out quite well. It's not I don't know how hard it is for you, Angry, but for us, it's
I do miss out on all the I miss out on all the free drinks
of course.
and per diems that CP gave you. You miss out on hanging out, missing out. That I do miss. Last year was great fun while I was there.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's we're